Alright, we've got a live clock. That's fun. And that's working real quick. Huh. Spectacular. Gotta get my windows all set up here, do this thing here, and that thing there. Alrighty. Okay. I want to welcome everybody to the show. Gonna at some point today open up the big box, the Warscryer Citadel, and that'll be fun. We've got 91 people watching already, so that's cool. It's not currently snowy Sunday morning, but it snowed a bit yesterday. Not a lot, just a tiny little bit, but enough to make it kind of slippery and weird. So that's a lot of fun. We're hoping that that big hedgehog, no, what's his name? Puxatawny Phil, the big groundhog, we're hoping that he was wrong, and it's not 6 more weeks of winter. I'm hoping it's far fewer than that, but we'll see how it goes. Let's see here. Hello from Vermont, Finland, Sweden, Jakarta, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Germany, Italy, New Jersey, Belgium, Seattle, Tokyo, Stuttgart, Atlanta. I just did an interview with Gigabytes Cafe in Atlanta 2 weeks ago, actually. So hopefully you got to see that. Janesville, Wisconsin, Spain, Canada. Let me see here. What else have we got here? Estonia, Morgantown, West Virginia, San Antonio, Texas. Go down to Taco Land. That's a old Dead Milkman song. Anyway, what else we got? Turin, Italy, Singapore. We've got Michigan, California. We've got Madison. 686 says, yes, the cello case finally got eyes. It's true. Our man from down under, VJ Morph, sent a small little care package and to me last week. I got it. And one of the things, there was a can koozie, like an Australian can koozie, which is in the other room currently, because I'm drinking coffee currently. What else did he send me? I got it over here. He made this little MDF kind of like barricade that's painted up and everything like that for one of the boards that I'll be doing soon. And he also sent me one of these, which is really cool. This is one of the Japanese-only Space Marine Heroes. They're like random pack. You don't know what's inside. I do, because I've looked. But they're like just a single frame, you know, like Space Marine dude. And then he also sent me the googly eyes, which are admittedly just taped on there. I'm not sticking them on there because my wife is not necessarily interested in having googly eyes in her case, potentially. So yeah, but they're on there for the show. So we got that going on. What else have we got? Germany, Dayton, Ohio, Sacramento, Zephyr Hills, Florida. I don't know if I've ever heard of that city before. That's kind of cool. There's VJ Morph, checking in from Sydney. JSL 480 says it was a chilly 78 degrees in Atlanta yesterday. We skipped spring. Yeah. Let me see here. What else have we got? Chile, Columbus, Georgia, Denmark. And Matthew Sears wants to know where his care package is, so that's something you got to ask VJ. I don't know. So yeah, hope everybody's doing well. So far, I haven't done any hobby this weekend yet. I'm hoping to maybe do some tonight, but I have a lot of other stuff to work on. One thing I'm going to be working on tonight is I'm going to be working more on t-shirts. I've been trying to get those finished up finally, since it's still not ideal. The website that I'm using, the product is good. They make a good t-shirt. They make good printed stuff. On the back end, the stuff that I have to do in the website, it could be better. I have determined that, and I've got to go through and do all this messaging. If you live anywhere other than the United States, then you want to, you'll see it once it comes out. There's 2 different styles for every shirt. There's the US made shirt and there's the EU shirt. No matter where you live If it's outside of the United States, you should always buy the EU shirt because the shipping will be far cheaper. Even if you're in Canada, which way's north? It's like 50 miles that way. It's not 50 miles. It's like 300. But still, I'm very close to Canada. The United States, in general, is very close to Canada in that they share a border. But Canadians, evidently, will save money on shipping and on printing if they buy the T-shirts from the European Union and have them shipped over. I don't know why, but that's the way it works. So I'm going through the messaging so that everybody knows that, so nobody outside of the United States tries to buy a U.S. shirt and then pays like $12 for shipping, which is what it would cost to get it shipped to Australia from the Americas. So I'm doing all of that, which is a hoot behind the scenes. I'm also working on this upcoming week. I'm going to be officially announcing, although you all as viewers know, I'm going to be officially announcing Tabletop Minions Expo, TMX 2018. So I'll be updating the website, doing all that stuff. And then tonight at 9:30, I've got a podcast interview with the veteran wargamer. And it won't be live, so you can't like listen to it. They'll publish it later after they've edited and all that stuff and taken out all of my, I don't know, coughing and sneezing or something. I don't know, maybe heavy breathing. But yeah, so I've got 5 interviews currently so far scheduled for this upcoming week. If you guys are wondering, if you haven't heard, so there's this app called Game 4. That's where I go to work every day, and we've launched it. And I am now looking to do interviews with basically content creators of any kind, bloggers, YouTubers, podcasters, whatever, within gaming, and not just wargaming, but board gaming, CCGs, RPGs, whatever. So if you've got something like that, contact Adam at iamgame4.com, or just go to the iamgame4.com website. There's an email link there you could click. Or if you've got a friend who runs something, or you have a favorite, podcast that that you like to listen to that's about role-playing games or anything else, let them know. So, and we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I just want to let people know about that. So, like I said, I'll be doing a lot of interviews. Yes. Hi there. The Japanese booster is great. Will you open it? Yeah, I already have actually. But I'll open it again. So they're like, I don't know what's in here. Oh, just a card. Oh, wait. There's still more. Oh, more cards and stuff. So, yeah, it's one of the kind of single sprues. This is, I don't know if you can see it very well. I don't know if it has a name specifically. Doesn't say. But, yeah, he's got, I think, 2 heads. Yeah, there's 2 potential heads here, so you can build him with a helmet or without. He's got a bolt pistol and a bolt gun. He's not a Primaris. He's a regular size, type Marine. But they're kind of the snap-together ones. And this is Brother Garrus, hence the card. And there's, like, different stuff that's on there and whatever. But there's a lot of Japanese, because it's designed just for the Japanese market. And then there's other stuff in here, too. Got one of those, which is fun. Yeah, Brother Garrus. And then here's all the information about him. For those of you in Tokyo, you might be able to, well, if it was focused, you could maybe help us out with that. But yeah, they're neat. They're neat figures, and I don't know if they're ever going to release them back, over by us at all, if they're just a Japanese market thing. But they're kind of cool. Let's see here. What else have we got? Lots of conversation going on. Jebulin Jurgens says TMX. Yes, TMX is coming up June 9th and 10th, 2018. Watch the skies. Don't actually watch the skies. VJ Morph asks, how was the party, Adam? So originally I was not going to be able to do the live show for patrons, for the Uncle Adam's Irregulars yesterday, because I had a birthday party to go to, but then the birthday party kind of time shifted, so it was okay. It was good. It was fun. It was nice to catch up with some people I hadn't seen in a while. And then there was some cake, so that was good too. Ratmaster says, Canada shipping always seems crazy expensive. My Canadian clients always get ripped when we send Japanese anime to them. Yeah, I think that I mainly blame the United States Postal Service for nearly everything, really. I mean, they get things where they need to go, but the prices are always kind of crazy in comparison to other. It just kind of drives me nuts. When I did the T-shirt sale back in 2015, it was rough because shipping to Europe was like, I don't know, something like $13 for a T-shirt, which was ridiculous. Yeah, so we've got that going on. But it's one of the reasons I'm going with this T-shirt, print on demand, people, is because they have a facility that's in the EU as well as America. So hopefully it'll be easier and cheaper for people to be able to buy it when they're not in America. So that's the plan. Fancy Llamas asks, Adam, are you aware of the warp spawn behind me? Yes, that's right there. That's it's my wife's cello case with some googly eyes from VJ Morph, which is nice. Let me see. What else have we got here? JSL 480 says, thanks for the Gigabytes interview. They're almost an hour away, but they're my favorite store. I had never heard of them before because I'm way up here in the north, but evidently it's a humongous store. It's 9,000 square feet. And John, the guy who did the interview, said that the weekend before they had an X-Wing tournament that was, I think, 139 or 140 players, which would be 70 boards, right? So that's huge. That's very, very big. Yeah, like we don't have any stores near as big like that around here. So that was really cool. And they do a lot of live streaming. They do like 3 or 4 live streaming shows a week. They're really into it. They're really very proactive, and they're very interested in making content and getting people in store and doing stuff. They've been around for 10 years, and they were one of the first stores to get verified with Game4. If you've got a local store that you would like them to start posting things on Game4, go tell them, hey, you can contact Game4. It's free, and then they will verify your information, and then the store owner will get access to the listing for their store in the store finder, and then they can update like the hours, and they can put in a description and a picture of the store, and then they can also start posting events, which will be seen in the list with the little thing that says event hosted by name of the store. So yeah, if you've not gotten a chance to take a look at that stuff, take a look at it. I'll be doing a video about Game4 specifically, I think next week at some point. So yeah, we're really starting to ramp up the marketing for it and going out. We're going to the Game Manufacturers Association trade show in Reno, Nevada. That's coming up in the mid-March. We'll be going out to Reno and talking to 750 different store owners who are all kind of walking around at this trade show. And yeah, and then I'll be back for like a couple of days, and then it's Adepticon. So it's going to be a busy month. Hey, Uncle Adam, what's your take on the new video that GW released, the one with the sunken ship and the fish? Yeah, it was funny because it was like one of their very serious, like, crazy, and it was like all these close-ups of this like sunken kind of like pirate ship, and then it was like very dramatic music if you haven't seen it, and then spoiler alert, then there was like kind of like a reggae sort of a kind of thing going on, and you could see that the sunken ship was in like a fish tank, and there was a fish kind of swimming around and stuff. I'm hoping they make fishmen. I'm hoping that there's Age of Sigmar fishmen, and it's a totally new faction, and then I would man, that's what I want. If it's sea elves, then no thank you, not for me. But if it's fishmen or something like that, man, that would be ideal, at least in my opinion. I do enjoy the fishmen. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that, to see what they do with that. There was also some Badger Wolf Prime says, in what state is Gigabytes located? Georgia. It's right near Atlanta. Marietta, Georgia, I believe. I was there was some stuff on Twitter. So right now, currently, this whole week, I think, is the New York Toy Fair. So it's like a huge kind of trade show, toy show, and whatnot. And somebody on Twitter took a bunch of pictures of something evidently in the Games Workshop booth, I believe, or it was something at a distributor, or I'm not 100% sure, but it's allegedly a new board game that Games Workshop is putting out, which seems to be 40K focused because it's got allegedly Necrons and AdMac in it. Some people are saying that they think it's going to be like a 40K version of Shadespire, but I'm not sure. I get the feeling that with the new Games Workshop and with the Warhammer community website, we'll probably find out about it. I checked just before the show started, and it's not on there yet, but it'll probably be on there very soon because they don't generally let rumors kind of hop around too much. They generally are like, oh, here. So if they showed it at New York, I mean, it can't be that much under wraps, I would think. So, yeah, but I'm looking forward to it, so we'll see how it goes. Oh, and then here's Franz. Who says, Adam, have you heard about the new board game that will release called Labyrinth of the Necrons that is currently presented at the Toy Fair? That's actually what I was just talking about. Yeah, so I think that we will, like I said, I think we'll hear about it very soon, probably, if you'll check out on the Warhammer community website. And I'm interested to see what that's going to be like. If it was just another Shadespire, but like a 40k version, it'll be interesting because there'd be a lot more range fighting. You know what I mean? Like Shadespire is very hand-to-hand. You have some people that can maybe attack somebody more than one hex away, but not generally. And in 40k, you would think there'd have to be a lot more. So I don't know. It could be something else completely different. It could be like a new sort of like... basically almost like a new Space Hulk, but with Necrons and... you know, AdMech. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what it is. Peter Pan says, do sea elves swim with their ears? They maybe steer with their ears a little bit. I don't know. But I'm hoping definitely fishmen. Toby Sanderson says, what do you think of the Age of Sigmar Vargulf? Actually, at work, we were looking at it, I think, yesterday. One of the guys I work with, who I play Age of Sigmar with, Jason, he's got a Sylvaneth army, and he's considering getting a Death army because of the subject of today's show, which is the big, you know, malign portents piece of terrain. He also has the Garden of Moor, which is basically kind of like the cemetery type terrain, which is going to mix real well with this thing. So anyway, he's thinking about building a Death army, and so we were looking at a bunch of the stuff yesterday at work. And the Vargulf is an older model, so it's, I think, predominantly resin, but it's still not bad looking. I mean, the Vargeists and stuff like that, I think, are way cooler looking models, but I'd like to see it a little bit more close up and like kind of in 3-dimensionals. You know, like sometimes you catch a picture of a new model at like just the wrong angle and it doesn't look right to you. And the Vargulf looked okay, but I think that actually in person it would look better. So, definitely. Barhammer says, first time catching this live. Hooray for lying home sick. Well, I mean, you know, sorry about being sick and all, but I'm glad to have you here live at the show. Do Stormcasts need snorkeling gear to fight them underwater? I don't know. Do Stormcasts need to breathe? I mean, I guess they do. Maybe. I don't know. That's a good question. Kelly Audia, hi. Good morning, everyone. Adam, I used to go to Gigabytes in Atlanta, and now I live in Illinois. Small world, yeah. I mean, you know, on the Game 4 app, we've got a store finder, and we've discovered that there's, as far as we can tell, only about 5,800 stores worldwide. So it's small world in the gaming world. You know what I mean? Like, there's probably more McDonald's than that, probably in... I don't know, I feel like there's more Subways than that in Wisconsin, but maybe not. Yeah, so it was interesting. Anthony B says, I hope that Las Vegas was good to you. It was fine. You know, I spent $5 on a slot machine so I could tell people that I've gambled in Vegas. I didn't get anything out of it, really. Yeah, so that's pretty much about it, but we'll see. I don't know if I'm going again next year, maybe. I guess if I get invited, I might go. It was, I mean, LVO is a good convention. Vegas is not a place that I would generally go just for fun, but I don't know, it was interesting. Let's see here. Harry says, hi, I'm Harry from Singapore. I listen to you a lot, and yes, you are a great morale booster. Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm hoping it helps you paint more stuff. Iron Fang says, any other minions attending TotalCon next weekend? I will be at Fire and Ice next weekend, which is in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. So I will not be at TotalCon. I don't actually know exactly where TotalCon is. But Fire and Ice is a small kind of general gaming convention and by small I mean like 600 people, which is actually, for a small convention, is actually a bigger portion of a small convention. Anyway, but yeah, so I'll actually be there with the Game 4 folks. I'll be there. We have a booth, and we'll be playing some games and talking to people and whatever. And it's a great convention. I mean, it's mostly board game heavy, but there is some other stuff going on. On Sunday of the convention, every year since they've started it, so it's, I don't know, 15 years now, they have this big 40K tournament called the Golden Stick Bomb. tournament, and I've got some friends that are playing in it, and I'm going to definitely kind of walk around, take some pictures and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for that next week, like Sunday. You'll probably see some stuff on, I don't know, Instagram, let's say. What else? Adam, very simple question, which I don't know if you've ever answered here before. What made you get into the hobby as a whole? Well, that's a good question. I would say that probably, like, so I first started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 5th grade. I played D&D. I had a babysitter who's his mom and my mom were best friends, and he was maybe 5 years older, and so he was into D&D, and so he taught me how to play. And so that was like the first like non-normal game, like not Monopoly, not Sorry, not Life or whatever. That was the first kind of odd game that I got into. And then in middle school, I played some BattleTech, but we didn't even use miniatures. We just used little cardboard stand-ups. And then in college, I started playing more of those types of games. I was also playing board games and stuff like that, but I started playing. I got back into BattleTech, but I actually had miniatures now. And I started playing Rollmaster, which is kind of an older school role-playing game. And then my friend Peter, he had a copy of Space Hulk, first edition, and so we played that. Now this is 1991 or so. So he showed me that, and that was when I was first kind of like exposed to the Imperium and Space Marines and Gene Stealers and all that kind of cool stuff. And so I just started to get interested in those types of things, and then I just saw it as like, well, you're supposed to paint these guys, so I'll do that. And so I started doing that, but I didn't actually get into 40K until 5th edition because I was a poor college student, and the concept of having an entire 40K army was out of reach to some degree, price-wise. I think that nowadays they've got so many other ways to kind of get into the game. Like if you were to go, like at the time, I would have been super cool to play something like Age of Sigmar or Age of Sigmar Skirmish with how few models you can use, or something like Shadespire would have been huge too. So, but I started looking for skirmish games at the time, which at the time, again, there weren't very many skirmish games, not like there are now. But I found a couple little ones here and there, and I would paint, metal miniatures and do that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, right around 5th edition, finally, I was in a position where I could kind of get into, start playing. So this was like 2006, maybe 2007. Probably about 2007. And then that's when I started playing 40K some, and then got into a bunch of other stuff, and then skirmish games, and I played some Malifaux. I played some, what else have I got? Song of Blades and Heroes. I still go to conventions usually. Like if I wasn't going to be having a booth at Fire and Ice this weekend, upcoming, I would be at Fire and Ice teaching people how to play Song of Blades and Heroes. So, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah. Let me see. What else have we got? Danny Echolls, hello there. I seem to be having trouble with the Game 4 app. It's not sending the information code through. Am I just being impatient, and should I wait till Monday? Downloaded the app yesterday morning. No, it should send it pretty quickly. Check your spam folder. We've had a couple of people say that sometimes I was just at a shop last weekend on Sunday, and a guy downloaded it. It was at the local shop, and he said that the confirmation code went to his spam filter. The other thing is make sure that you typed in the right email address. That's also a problem. We just had a guy yesterday who said he never got it, and we went and looked in the database, and he had spelled .com, spelled it .con with an N, which isn't going to go anywhere. So check that out too. But if you still don't get it, and if it's not in your spam filter and all that stuff, send me an email at Adam, A-D-A-M, at iamgame4.com, and we'll try to figure it out. Or just go to the iamgame4 website. There's a link at the bottom that I'll also see. So yeah, definitely take a look at that. Alex asked, have you ever used your access to a cellist to add a dramatic score to a game? No, I have not. Although I think I have been playing games while she's been practicing from time to time, but I think if anything, I've been painting. There has been some times when practice has been going on, but I think it's been more like I've been playing a video game, like any other room. Yeah, I've kicked around the idea of maybe having some cello music in the video. I'm looking at my wife in the videos, but I don't know. We'd have to record in the thing, and it'd be a whole deal. Lord knows I've got microphones though, so I'm just saying. Zoltan. Oh, Zoltan sent me an email, I believe. Yes, I think you did. Zoltan, hello, Uncle Adam. Greetings from Hungary. Please tell us your opinions about Shadow War Armageddon in light of the new 40k rules. Thank you. I like Shadow War Armageddon. I think I actually like it a little bit better than Necromunda, and that's mainly just because I can play with more 40k type guys. It's not that I'm against the gangers; they're fine, and they're great. Great sculpts. I just like the concept a little bit better of Shadow War Armageddon. So I'm probably gonna have to do more. I'm gonna have to probably do. I'll be definitely doing at least a battle report or two eventually about Shadow War. I'll be doing the battle reports soon because I'm going to be moving into a new studio. For those who haven't heard, hopefully starting on March 1st is when I'll be able to move in, and it's downtown. It's above a coffee shop, and it's going to be a nice space. I'm going to have more space to be able to kind of like shoot, but then also be able to set up a table. I have a foldable 4x6 table that's made by this company, and I cannot remember their name for the life of me. I've got to really figure it out. They didn't send me the table like for free or anything. Like I bought it, but it's this really nice fold-up table that is designed for wargamers, and then you unfold it, and it's like got a handle on it, so it's easy to carry. Well, easy-ish to carry, and then it's so that's what I'm going to be doing bat reps on eventually. I'm hoping that moderator Matt and potentially Anton and maybe some of the other guys from the Chicago area are going to come up, and we'll do some Wreckage battle reports. That'd be fun. So, but yeah, that's what it's going to look like. Zebulon Jurgens says, I would be there teaching Gloomhaven if I didn't work every Sunday. I won a copy of Gloomhaven back in May of last year, and then I just sort of sat on it for a really long time, and then recently sold it to one of the guys at work. It looks, I mean, it's heavy as hell. I'll tell you that. There's got to be a lot of stuff in there. And I know a lot of people are crazy about the game, and I feel as if it's not really a miniatures game. I mean, it has a bunch of miniatures in it and stuff like that. It's more kind of like, if it's anything, I think it's a gateway game for board gamers to get into Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs than it is for a gateway game for board gamers to get into miniatures and stuff. But, it's been doing crazy good, so that's very fun. Iron Fang says, Shadespire is very good. I agree. I've been really enjoying it. I'm going to be painting my orcs next, and then after that, probably, well, it's going to be either Skeleton or Skaven. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it. Danny Echolls says, thank you. I'll check the spam and make sure I put in the correct email. Yeah, check those two things, and like I said, if both of those things are cool, let me know. Shoot me an email, and we'll get you sorted. Hey, 12 Neef. Let me see here. It's finished Stormcast, and Orcs are primed, and going to work on my Fire Slayers. Yeah, I haven't picked up the Fire Slayers or the Skaven yet. I want to do that. I don't know if they're at my local shop. I was going to shoot them a message last night, and then I got distracted. So yeah, what else have we got here? I've been looking at new skirmish games, Necromunda, Malifaux, Frostgrave, Shadespire, but I'm indecisive about what to purchase. How do you select among rules? Feels like I'm chasing new shiny games. I mean, a big portion of it, I think, is, well, I mean, Shadespire is not exactly a skirmish game in the style that those other games are. Those other games are definitely miniature games, war games where although Necromunda you can play on a board, but it also has rules if you buy the Gang War book to use tape measures and not have to have a board. You can use whatever you want to use. Malifaux is definitely a miniature skirmish game. Frostgrave is a miniature skirmish game. Shadespire is kind of a gateway game between board gaming and wargaming. It's still great, don't get me wrong, but it's not exactly the same thing. It kind of depends on what you like to play and what you like to paint. Frostgrave has got some kind of cool RPG elements to it, which I think makes it a really good game. Malifaux, it has got like a kind of an interesting sort of like steampunkish kind of vibe, but there's a lot of other different factions that are very different, so you can play, your play style can be very interesting or very specific to what you like. Also, the thing that's cool about Malifaux is it doesn't really use dice. It uses a card mechanic, which is really interesting. So yeah, that's kind of the way to work. What else? Ratmaster 2000 says, so went to OrcCon yesterday. Well, that sounds fun. Oh, hang on. Scrolling. After not doing cons in years, so a lot of the games you talk about there was a great experience getting back into gaming. Gaming overload for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, bigger conventions can be definitely gaming overload. Overload. Yeah. Gen Con specifically is crazy, obviously. So yeah, yeah. I generally get like reinvigorated somewhat by going to conventions and like that kind of thing. But yeah, I can see how it can go the other way sometimes too. I don't mind crowds. I think that helps too. I think some people just really kind of get overwhelmed by crowds, and that's, some people are like that, some people aren't. I'm generally okay with crowds. I guess if it's really like shoulder to shoulder, like when you're trying to get into Gen Con, like at the first day at like 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm not a big fan of that. But walking around during Gen Con is okay until like on Sunday. Usually on Sunday it's family day, so everyone's pushing a stroller, and that makes it really hard because you're going to get your toes run over a lot. But in general, big crowds don't bother me too much. Let's see here. Tommy DePorter says, I would like to get started on 40k, but I don't know if I should get a starter set or get Dark Imperium since I will need a rule book. Well, if you've got a friend who wants one of the forces in Dark Imperium and you want the other one, then it's a good deal to buy it, split the cost or whatever, so that they buy the Death Guard and then you buy the Primaris Marines or vice versa, and then maybe split the cost of the other book or something like that. You can do that. If neither of you, or if you don't have a friend who wants to play and you're just getting interested and you want to play something that's not in that box, then I'd tell you just to buy the book and then buy like a start collecting box of whatever army it is that you're interested in, whether it's Space Wolves or AdMech or Tyranids or whatever. There's a bunch of those start collecting boxes are really, really good deals. The Dark Imperium box is also a very good deal, but it comes with Primaris Marines or, Death Guard. So if you don't like either of those armies, then I probably would tell you not to bother buying it. If you want to start with one of those armies, then it's a great deal. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's see here. Hey there, what is your opinion on the Rune Wars miniatures game? I've played 2 demos of it, and it's not exactly my cup of tea. I really like the skeleton, like the death models are fun. They're kind of a little cartoony, and I sort of like them. Like there's a lot of skeletons and stuff, and they're kind of neat. They almost remind me. I don't know if you've been watching. There's a game that's in beta right now, a PC game, and I think it's also for Xbox. That's called Sea of Thieves, and it's like a pirate game. When you go to these different little pirate islands, there are these skeletons that are like skeleton pirates kind of, that will like come up out of the sand and like attack you and stuff like that. And the kind of cartoony style of those skeletons reminds me a little bit of the Rune Wars skeletons. And so I like those models. The other faction that came in the starter, those models don't do a lot for me. I don't like the mechanics of the game with those weird dials and stuff. I know it's very much like X-Wing, and it totally works with X-Wing. I don't find it to work super great with that type of game. Plus, I've never been a big fan of rank and flank type games. In that game, and like in the old Warhammer Fantasy, the models are all lined up in blocks, and you move them as blocks, like rectangles and whatnot. And I've always liked games where you move each guy a little bit separately. So, not exactly my cup of tea, particularly. Moderator Matt says we will do a Rec Age Bat Rep. Well, that's good to hear. I was hoping. I don't know else if you're going to come up here. I mean, I guess we could play, Pinochle. Is that a game? I think that's a game. Zebulon Jurgen says, skirmishes plus roleplay. I'm replacing all of the standees with miniatures, and I'll be painting from various games. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, there's a lot of people who play RPGs and don't use miniatures at all, and that's fine. With 4th edition D&D, they kind of almost tried to require it. With 5th edition, they've gotten away from that, so you don't need it. But a lot of people do still like it because it just kind of helps to visualize things a little bit better if you're all together. I've got friends who play 5th edition D&D, but none of them are in the same spot. They all do it over like Discord or whatever. And so in those situations, it's very difficult to have those kind of like, miniatures and go, well, he's this far away from that and whatever. Usually it's just the GM is like, I'll be the one who kind of figures out where everybody is. So, but yeah, if you do get the chance to play something like Dungeons and Dragons and whatever, and everybody's got a miniature of their person, and then the DM's got a bunch of miniatures of orcs or kobolds or whatever, it can make the game a lot more sort of fun and interesting, I think. But it's not a requirement. Like I said, 4th edition seemed almost as if they were trying to make it a requirement. 4th edition, I talked to a bunch of people. I never played 4th edition, but I talked to a bunch of people who were big into Dungeons and Dragons, and they're like, it's a really cool miniatures game. It's not particularly a role-playing game. And now 5th has kind of brought that back. I mean, a lot of people really seem to love 5th edition, so that's really cool. What else have we got? Someone said Shadespire is kind of like a CCG. Not exactly, because you know what you're getting, you know? It's maybe, if anything, it's a little bit like X-Wing in that you can get, like, if you buy the skeletons, there might be a card in there that you might want to use with your Stormcast, but there's a bunch of other cards in there too that can only be used by the skeletons. So there's a little bit of that when you're doing your deck building, but it's not like, oh, I hope I get this rare card. It's not, you know, they don't have that kind of thing going on. John J says, Tabletop Minions, putting in my vote. I am one that actually enjoys your convention videos. Well, that's good to hear. I'm going to shoot some stuff. Like I said, I might shoot some of the 40K stuff that's going to happen at Fire and Ice next weekend. Maybe I'll put that in a video, or I'll do something with that. And then when I'm at, I don't know if I'll shoot much when I'm in Reno. Maybe, but maybe not. But I will definitely shoot when I'm at Adepticon coming up, which is right after I get back from Reno. I'm like home for like 2 or 3 days, and then I'm down to Chicago area. I've got some plans for some videos, but not a ton. Like I don't generally do a ton of videos when I'm at conventions anymore, because first of all, it takes away some enjoyment from doing the convention, and also this year at Adepticon is gonna be super crazy busy for me because I've got a lot of meetings and stuff like that. So which is great, you know, but it's gonna take a bit of time away from shooting to some degree. Matthew Sears says he also digs convention videos, but that's because he's been in a bunch of my convention videos, I think. I could be wrong. David Cole says, I got into Warhammer again thanks to a friend. When I played before, I only played with my dad because I didn't know anyone that played, but now I have some friends that want to get together. So that's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's always good when you've got a group of people. Like, it's difficult when you're looking for just like you want to play a game, but you're the only person you know that wants to play. That makes it difficult. It's a little bit easier with skirmish games because then at least you could build and paint 2 small skirmish armies, and then you can be like, hey, let's play. You can use my army, and I'll use this army, and that's fine. Whereas like a big game like, say, 40K or even Bolt Action and stuff like that, you got to put a bunch of work into an army, and it becomes problematic to have 2, you know, right off the bat, so that you can, like, you know, loan one to the opponent so that you can play against them. So yeah. Sam Hinchy says that strollers have gotten much bigger. They are essentially RVs. Yeah, that's going back to the Gen Con comment about the Sunday at Gen Con. Yeah, they are big, huge kind of baby support Death Stars. And, you know, I mean, you have those little tiny ones that kind of fold up sometimes, but when you're, like, going to be spending the day at a convention like that as a parent, you bring the big one because you need... I will bet that there are probably baby strollers now that have, like... batteries in them so you can like charge your phone and tablets and stuff like that. If not, one of you should start that company. I mean, my luggage has got a battery in it, so I can charge my phone on it, so there's got to be some of those, like, you know, USB plugs and stuff like that in the newer baby carriages. Those of you who are parents might be able to back me up on that. Uncle Adam, have you played any of the Malign Portents organized play yet? No, I haven't. I've only really just thumbed through the book so far. I picked up the book. I picked up the Cool Death guy because that's an awesome model, and I definitely want to paint him. And then, of course, there's the big box of the piece of terrain. I disturbed one of the cats by knocking on it like that. I think he thought that someone was at the door. Yeah, I've startled several cats by making that noise. So yeah, I haven't played any of the organized play yet, though. No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not super into organized play, so there's that too. What else have we got? Fancy Llamas says you should really come to Millennium Con here in Texas this year, Adam. See what you think about it. I don't know. Well, I mean, we want to start doing some more traveling a little bit with conventions for Game 4, you know, because we're going to be going and spreading the word. Right now, we're not planning too far past like Adepticon. I am considering going to the Nova Open, which I think is in August, and that's in Northern Virginia. I have not pulled the trigger on that yet and everything, but I'm thinking about it pretty heavily. I don't plan to go to Gen Con this year, so there's that. But yeah, so we are looking at different conventions and stuff like that, trying to see what's going to work out to reach the most gamers and that kind of jazz. What else have we got? C4 Darkmane says, I really loved Rune Wars, but I don't think it's taking off. Yeah, no, that's true too. I mean, they've produced a bunch of stuff for it, certainly, but I don't know anybody around here who plays it. There's a copy at the local shop that has been sitting there for a long time of just the main base game. And so, you know, I mean, admittedly, generally, if you're a store owner, if you want to get stuff out of your store, you kind of have to use some sort of salespersonship and, you know, explain why someone might be interested in this. Not saying force stuff on people, but if they ask a question and you're like, yep, this would maybe scratch that itch, you need to be a little more proactive sometimes. But that being said, yeah, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what niche that particular game is designed to fit. Like with the upcoming Star Wars Legion, definitely Star Wars fans are going to be, you know, interested. So there's that. But Rune Wars being a completely, like, I like coming up with your own IP, you know, your intellectual property, and not just making everything licensed. But yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like they launched it and then I don't know. I'm not sure what they did. I know they did a lot of sponsored videos and got people to be like painting it on YouTube channels and stuff like that to show it off. But I don't think that there was much beyond that. I didn't see a ton more beyond that, and so I don't know how. I don't think it's selling super well. What else have we got going on here? Thank you for stopping me in time and possible buyer's regret. I will be buying the rulebook first, and then I've just gotten into the lower 40K, and it was enough to pull me in. Well, good. I'm glad to help you out. I mean, like I said, the Dark Imperium box is a great deal and is great if you want to play one of the armies that are in it. If you don't, then I would tell you just to buy the rule book and then figure out what army you want to buy and then buy a start collecting box. Those are all about 85 bucks American, and they're almost always a really super good deal. So I don't think there's any of them. I don't think any of them are like, if you added up all the parts in here, it would equal $85. Most of them are, if you added up all the parts in this $85 box, they'd be $120 or $140. So they're very good value. Okay. Adam, do you like singing karaoke? I've only done it once, and I was not sober when that happened. It was a Christmas party, gosh, a long time ago, in the late 90s, I think. I was a Christmas party for a job that I had before I worked for the advertising agency, and I started working for the advertising agency in 98, and I worked there until 2002. Excuse me. So yeah, I think I've only ever sung karaoke once, and it was in the late 90s. Matthew Sears, moderator Matt, says, having a beer with Sam can make you better at painting. I think maybe. A little bit. I mean, if you stand closer to him, I think it helps. You should definitely come to the Nova Open. As a Nova resident, it's a great smallish convention, says Blues Light. Yeah, like I said, I'm interested in doing it. I mean, it's not as big as LVO, I think, or it's right around maybe the same size. It's definitely not as big as, say, something like Adepticon. Adepticon's about 4,000 to 5,000. LVO is about 1,500. So, but I've been kind of interested in checking it out. So. Rune War. Did I miss much of the stream? It started about 45 minutes ago. Dank Floyd. I saw a couple of copies of for 40% off at my LGS. I'm assuming you're talking about Rune Wars. Yeah, I've also been seeing some LGSs recently selling War Machine for a big percentage off too. When we were in, where the heck were we? I was someplace. Was I in Indianapolis? I don't remember where. No, it wasn't it? I don't know. I was someplace recently, and there was a game store, and I was there for a convention, and went into the store, and they had like a spinner thing that was full of Privateer Press stuff, and it was all marked down quite a bit, and I thought that was kind of odd. So, hi Adam, just joined the stream in gym. Currently thinking about the new Spike Claw Swarm for Shadespire. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them too. I want to, like I said, that's definitely one of the the war bands I want to get for Shadespire. That's the Skaven guys. And I'm looking forward to painting them. I have my Skaven Blood Bowl army built, bases textured, primed brown, and I need to get them painted. So I've got a bunch of Skaven to kind of get through. DJ Todd P. Harris. Have you seen the new Walking Dead No Sanctuary minis game? Have you read any of the rules or any of the reviews? If so, what's your opinion of the game if you have one? I don't know that I've seen Walking Dead No Sanctuary. I've seen Walking Dead All Out War, which is the game from Mantic that's kind of a cool kind of gateway game, sort of between... I mean, it's... If you're going to go like a perfect gateway game, it's a little bit more towards the miniature side than it is the board game side, but it's a little bit like a slightly fancier Zombicide, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's some guys from Chicago actually, Tim and Josh ran it at TMX last year, and they had a really nice board that was like a jungle kind of board and everything like that, and all the figures were painted and everything, and it looked great. So, yeah, it was. That's a cool game. I don't know about the No Sanctuary game. I haven't seen that one. I don't know if that's an expansion now that Mantic is doing, or if somebody else is doing it. But I'm going to actually talk soon. I'm going to be doing a video about kind of a different kind of gateway game, and I think that the All Out War game from Mantic is one of them I'm going to be talking about. They've put out a bunch of other stuff past the main box set too, and it's of the different kind of licensed games that Mantic does. I think that this is the one that's working maybe the best for them, so that's kind of cool too. And it's based off the comic book, not the TV show. So there's that. My first box of Start Collecting / Start arrived today. Good deal, I say. Also spend about 90 bucks on, or 90 euros, sorry, on paints. Yeah, I could see that. CD Darkmane says, I wonder if version 3 of War Machine is dying. None of the shops, venues in my city since they killed the press gangers. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I know that they've recently produced, what's the name of their kind of skirmish game? Company of Iron. And I've heard good things about that. I saw people playing that quite a bit, actually, at Valhalla when I was there back in October in Utah, that thing that I went to. So I think that's doing well for them, and they had a booth at LVO, and I saw people playing, the game there at LVO. They had a tournament going on, or Steamroller or something, things like that. Around here, like in the middle part of the state here in Wisconsin, I don't know anybody who really plays. I know there were a bunch of players down near Milwaukee area, but I don't know if that's continued. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about how they're overall doing. I think that they're still in the top 5 on the ICV2 listing of non-collectible hobby game or miniatures games. And by non-collectible, they mean not like HeroClix, where you know what's in the box when you buy it. It's not a random pack. That's the way that ICV2 kind of organizes the different types of games. So, yeah. What else have we got here? Fingers crossed, says VJ Moore, for Seraphon War Band ASAP. Yeah, a Seraphon War Band in Shadespire would be great. Because I've never gotten a chance to paint Seraphon because I don't think I want an entire Lizardman army, you know what I mean? But if I could get 5 or 6 of them to get to paint as part of a Shadespire Warband, that would be super fun. Because I would just love... That's the thing that's great about games like that, and skirmish games in general, is that you can sort of just you just get tastes, rather than having to paint, 50 guys who are all the same, army, and they're all the same outfit, and they're all the same uniform and all that jazz. You can instead get to do a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and then kind of change it up, which is a lot of fun. So that's what I'm kind of interested in about... Hopefully they will make some Seraphon. And, they haven't even touched elves yet either, or elves or whatever they're called now. So I'm assuming they're going to do that at some point too. I'm getting a little bit of a runny nose here. I apologize. I'm just going to do one of these real quick. Moderator Matthew Sears says, cat number 3 has decided to join me watching the live stream, must not nap. Yeah, it's hard sometimes when you got a cat on your lap. They will make you sleepy. It's some sort of superpower they have. Good morning from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Well, hello. Scott R. says, missed you at LVO, maybe at Adepticon. Yeah, I mean, I talked to a lot of people at LVO. It was a great time, but even that convention, you know, it's still pretty big. And if you're there, like as a player, if you're there and you're playing in the big tournament, you know, you're spending a lot of time at the tables and, you know, not necessarily out doing a lot of other stuff where I might be, because I don't spend a ton of time in the tables. I walk around and take, you know, video and stuff like that, but that's about it. All right. And a Nergal War Band. Yeah, they could make a cool Nergal Chaos War Band, too, for Shadespire. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe make them look sort of like the Putrid Blight Kings. I would totally buy a set of 3 or 4 of those guys. Sam Hinchy says, I think that pre-colored press-fit models are super beginner-friendly. I really wish that 40K would have more like that. I mean, well, I mean, that's, to be fair, kind of, well, I don't know if these guys are press-fit or not, but they do some of that now. They are making some 40K little pieces. I know that there's a press-fit group of Reavers, which are the Primaris, kind of like Scouts. There's press-fit Death Guard. And those are also, I think, in colored plastic as well. With Shadespire, it makes sense that they do all in press fit because they're trying to also court the board gaming group who are like, so I can just cut these out and just push them together, and I don't have to paint them because, you know, these guys are blue and these guys are tan and these guys are red, and you know, so that's kind of a nice thing. But if you do want to get into it, start playing or painting and doing that hobby stuff, you have that ability as well. So that's kind of cool. E1 Miniatures says, a good narrative hook for the Seraphon Warband would be scavenging for spire glass for their glass magnifying weaponry. Oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I can see that. What else have we got? Oh, hey, we've got Malif here. I talked to Malif at LVO. Relic Blade. Going to be talking about Relic Blade pretty soon as well on the channel. Chris Van Tiggum says, is Shadespire the new Mordheim? I would say no. Shadespire is a little bit more board gamey than that. You know, you're playing on a hex map. There's not really any real physical, like, 3D terrain. It's a very fast game, so you're done in, like, once you really know the game, you're doing games, like, they say that once you get the hang of it and you start to really know the game, you should be able to play best 2 out of 3 or best out of 3 or whatever in usually maybe 45 minutes to an hour. So it's a quicker game. If I had to guess, I would say at some point they are going to re-release, kind of like they did with Necromunda, they're going to re-release Mordheim, but I don't know exactly when. I almost wonder if they're hedging their bets because Frostgrave is pretty popular and Frostgrave is very much like Mordheim as well. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but it's yeah. I would say that Shadespire is not the new Mordheim because it's a very much simpler, quicker game. And again, it's designed almost for, you don't have to play it competitively, but it does have a definite competitive advantage in that you're playing on hexes, and so there's not like, well, I think you moved a little too far. I think you should have only gone 6 inches, and I think you went 6 1/4, and that kind of stuff, because you're just in hexes, so you count and it's easy. Those types of things help. So, what else have we got? Mr. Blue Sky says, press fit have large crevices, green stuff needed. In some situations they can, yeah. I can see that. What else have we got here? Tommy DePorter says, so I bought the Dark Imperium box because it was only 20 euros more and free shipping instead of the rule book separate. One more question: how accurate must the painting be to be approved for play? Well, I mean, if you just want to play with your friends, you don't have to have anything be real accurate at all. Tournaments, if you get into tournaments down the road, they don't generally say, well, really those shoulder pads should have been brown or whatever. I mean, it's not usually like that. People make up their own chapters all the time and make up their own colors. If you want to be, say, Blood Angels, well, then you better paint them red, probably. Unless you go with Lamenters, they're technically yellow, but it's a whole different thing. So you don't have to be super crazy accurate. No one will probably ever throw you out of a tournament for not being accurate with your stuff, unless that's part of the rules for some weird reason where they're like, everybody's stuff has to be super crazy accurate. But then you would see that in the rules packet for the tournament. The tournament organizer needs to make that stuff known before the tournament starts. So yeah, that's probably important. All right, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to... Rich Z says, hi, I just joined. Have you had a look at the new Warscryer, or is that still to come? It's actually just to come right now. So I need my knife. So I've got this so I can get the plastic off of the box. So this is the box. It's humongous. I think that it is probably 18 inches tall by about a foot wide, which is 12 inches. And then it's at least 6 inches deep. It's a big, huge, crazy piece of... I'm getting a lot of glare here. It's a big, huge, crazy piece of terrain. Now, I have been told by people that some people think that it's not very good material. I think that's partially just due to the fact that it is really big, you know? Like, making a smaller piece of terrain, you can use generally smaller pieces, or, you know, better plastics and things like that. But... yeah, you kind of have to, when you get the much bigger pieces, I think they end up using maybe cheaper plastic or a different type of plastic that's maybe stronger, but can't hold detail maybe quite as easily. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we should get slightly less glare, or not. Okay, so yeah, that's the big the thing. So way up here, this is the scry part, because it's like a telescope, it's like an observatory. Over here, this is hard to do. You've got these two buildings. Now the thing is with the painting on this particular one, like this is very, up here, this is very cool, because this to me is like a copper dome or maybe a bronze dome for the, you know, the person to like look at the heavens and whatnot. But these, to me, should probably not... I don't think that they should have that green patina. I feel like these should be slate. Like here and here, I'm going to probably paint my roofs to be slate. These, like, you don't know what they're made out of, but they have that verdigris on it, so it must be some sort of metal, probably copper. Like, there are copper roofs out there, don't get me wrong, but they're not usually... like, this to me looks like a slate roof or a tile roof. So it's kind of like they decided to make it a copper roof, but, like, out of pieces. Anyway, it's maybe just me being a weird person, but I think it's kind of odd. There's a bunch of information at the bottom. Warning, small parts. They're not that small, I'll tell you that right now. I'm going to try to open this box up without dropping it on the floor. Okay. So inside, like, these are the... here we go. These are the two giant base pieces, okay? So you have, you know, skulls, because you gotta have skulls. But that's the bottom, you know, the base. And I'll set that there. And then this is the other one. So again, just big honking pieces of plastic as the base for the model. Just balance that. Then there are instructions, which are helpful. And then there's nothing else. That's it. Nope. Oh, wait. There's a hidden compartment. I don't know why. I'm assuming they didn't want stuff to get caught. This is a lot of comedy. Alright, so you've got this weird piece of cardboard. Chuck back there. And now you've got, it looks like two, maybe three big screws. Four big screws. Alright, so I'm going to set this over here. I'm going to scooch this and set this right there. Okay. If I can get to balance. There we go. Oh, for God's sakes. See, this is the problem. I need more space. This is the... yeah. The downside is I'm not going to be able to do the studio. I'm not going to be able to do the live show at the studio. So, because there's not really any internet there. So, don't think that me moving to the studio is going to make this any less of a comedy of errors. Alright. This is the biggest sprue and is the reason why the box is so large. They could have technically made a smaller box if this was a smaller sprue. I'm sure that there's a manufacturing reason. I can't figure out what it is because I'm not a manufacturer. So, yeah. You've got a lot of pieces. You've got, like, this is all cool brick. There does seem to be... a friend of mine was telling me that he thought it looked like there was almost like a dock. Like that you could have this near a water thing. And maybe that's what that new ship that they showed off recently was all about. I don't know. but you've got a lot of doorways. This over here is another big piece that will make up part of the tower stuff. You've got some other stuff over here. You've got this cool wooden walk-around area. You've got some of the tile roof kind of stairs. This is probably the thing that takes you up to the top of the tower. And now we've got two smaller. And this is interesting. I think this is the same sprue twice. Am I wrong? No. Okay, so this is the same sprue twice. So I'm assuming that they did that on purpose. I'm going to try to get him in an actual damn shot. Or else they just screwed up and gave me two of them. No, it looks like... So like here, this piece, there's two of those, right? But if you put them together, they make one. See what I'm doing there? So I think they're doing that on purpose. I mean, it makes sense. It's just because then that way you only had to make one mold. So when you do each of these kits, you make one mold, you just drop two of these in each box, and it saves you on molds. So that's a smart... That's one of those manufacturing things. And then lastly, there's this sprue, which has the big dome and the telescope thingy or whatever. Yeah, and then there's the... Like that would be the lens on the telescope. You attach that to this part here. You've got these tile roofs that I was talking about before. Got a big, what is this, a smokestack sort of chimney sort of thing going on. Like this whole piece, when it's done, is at least almost 2 feet tall, I think. So I'm super looking forward to putting it together. I also have a Garden of More Age of Sigmar terrain set that looks, you know, it's basically, like I said, it's like a ruined, old, forgotten cemetery. And so I haven't built any of it yet, though. But when I do, I want to build all this stuff at the same time and then paint it probably all at the same time. I'm probably not going to get to painting this until it starts to get warmer out, because I would really like the primer that I use to be on this, that I use on this, to be, even though I love priming with my airbrush, with big terrain pieces I generally like priming with rattle can, because I like to use something that sticks more to plastic. So I would probably look for some of that Rust-Oleum, camouflage spray. Get that nice matte black. It is designed to stick to plastic really well. It's not as good, in my opinion, as the Krylon stuff, but you can't seem to find the Krylon stuff anymore. So even the Rust-Oleum is a good like base for this. Like I would either use brown, dark brown, or black, but probably black, because I think I want this to be mostly painted in like grays. I want the rock to be gray. The one thing though that I find weird, slightly, is that, oops, stuck on my microphone. Like all of the like on the box here, you see how they went with a real brown for the rocks there to make it kind of set off from the gray of the stones? That's kind of weird in my opinion. Like whenever I paint like rocks in terrain, I almost always paint them gray. So they did this to be a contrast, to show you so that it's, the building doesn't blend directly into the stone that it's sitting on. But I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm going to go that brown. I want it to be, I don't know. The problem is if you just do everything in gray, then it's going to look like you didn't even barely paint it at all, maybe. So that's going to be something I'm going to have to try to figure out, is that whether I want to stick with the brown rocks. You don't see a lot of brown rocks out there. I mean, rocks are generally gray. You might get granite, which has more of a reddish hue sometimes, or sandstone, I guess, which is more of a tan, but this doesn't look like a sandstone formation. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do about that. But you can tell here that they did it and they made these rocks brown, because if they would have painted them gray, they would have been the same, or nearly the same color as the stones. So I've got to kind of pay attention to that, try to figure it out. I've seen some people online who've painted the skulls up here at the top of the tower. They've painted them bone color, and I don't want to go that direction either. I would probably either keep them the same color as the stones that they're kind of like carved out of, or maybe try to make them look like they were made out of metal and like attached to the outside of the building, and then use a patina and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not exactly sure where I'm going at with that so far, but big honking pieces. Let's see how they dry fit. I've also heard from some people saying that you need a lot of green stuff to make these go together. Bigger pieces are just more likely to warp, and I can understand that. I mean, so far so good. There's a little bit of gappage you know, here. So yeah, you might do a little bit of green stuff here, but I also think that just when you glue, if you use a bunch of clamps, you know, like from the hardware store, that will help keep pieces together. I think that like here, they're also hiding some of the gaps in between here, and there's parts that will go there. On this rock, it's very hard, I think, unless there's part of the building that goes up and covers it. But yeah, I mean, so far, I'm happy. I mean, there's also been some complaints online. Like right here, you can see, you see that weird little spot there? That's an injection point, I think. Like the plastic went into this piece there. Well, you just have to kind of sand it off and stuff like that. There are other weird little things I've seen. Like there's an injection point right here on this door. See, between those two little, what do you call them there? Like rivets in the wooden door. There's an injection point. You just fill it in with a little bit of green stuff, or just say maybe it's a... I mean, honestly, this door is all beat up. It could be a bullet hole or a wormhole or who knows what. You know, it wouldn't be that difficult. I think it's a pretty decent piece. Like, it's obviously it's got its little issues here and there. And once I build it, I might be unhappy or, you know, whatever with some other parts. But I think it's going to be a great looking piece. And again, it's so big, I don't feel personally like I'm going to be like, oh, I looked at that and there's a little tiny gap there or whatever. Because it's, you know, it's 2 foot tall. So from a distance, you're like, wow, hopefully that should look really cool. So, yeah, it's not cheap. I think it's $110 American. That's how much I paid for it. I didn't. Games Workshop did not send this to me or anything like that. They have sent me stuff in the past. This I bought from my local gaming store, Flying Phoenix Games, and they have a like a customer loyalty plan. So every $100 you spend, you get $15 back to spend on your next purchase. So, you know, that was basically like I got a bonus right there. Actually, I think they took the $15 off of this one because I'd already spent $100. So, yeah, I got it for slightly cheaper because of that. But it's, like I said, not cheap. And I did not get it for free. So, just FYI. I'm going to figure out how it goes back in the box. Looks like that. How about that? All right, so that's the fun with the Warscryer Citadel. I thought for a second that I had spelled it wrong all this time, but I did not. But yeah, the rules booklet has got, you know, a bunch of stuff in different languages, and it shows putting the big base pieces together to start, and then there's the roofs and all the parts. I mean, it's pretty simply laid out, but it's, you know, it's a bunch of steps. There's a lot of parts in here. Anyway, there you go. There's your unboxing. I don't generally do them, but I've done 2 unboxings already today. I did that one, and then I did the little, you know, Japanese Space Marine Heroes unboxing as well. So, you know, you got a 2-fer this week. You know, I think that I'm knocking it out of the park. That's all I got to say. All right, so what kind of things have been going on while I've been yammering about and making a lot of noise with plastic? Potshot 506 has got to leave early. We'll catch the rest later. All right, we'll have a good time. Dave says with the graveyard at the bottom, that will look awesome. Yeah, I think that they will mix really nicely together because that graveyard, that Garden of Morr, M-O-R-R, that's a really cool kit. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there. Like, they show it in the box, it's like all squished together into like one piece, but I really feel because a lot of the pieces are sort of ruined and screwed up that you wanted to spread it out more. So I think that'll help a lot on a table. It'll look really cool. Owen Jackson says, I think that the rocks are supposed to be the fragments of a meteor, so I'll be painting mine a metallic gray, silver, bronze. I think GW went with pure bronze for contrast. That's interesting. I guess I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, if it's supposed to be basically parked on the fragments of a meteor, that entire building, that could be kind of cool. So yeah, if you did go with a metallic, that'd be interesting. I would want to do something else. Like, I'd almost want to put, like... You know, it'd be really cool would be to put, like, LED lights in it and have little pieces of, like, green acrylic as, like, what do they call that? Warp stone? Or weird stone? Or whatever the heck that stuff is. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. The Cimbrian Bull says, assemble the castle and let the cats use it to play in. Well, it's not that large. I mean, and then one of our cats is very big, so he would certainly not fit in there. Yeah, no, it's not quite that large. Fuzzy Subject says, I went for gray rocks initially as well, but I think I'll aim for an orange tint to get the meteorite look. Yeah, I could see, I mean, like, again, like I said, If you just painted it gray like it's a normal rock formation, and then it's got a gray rock or brick building or whatever on it, I think that you'd have too much gray and you need more contrast. I mean, I guess technically, if you wanted to, you could make the bricks more like red clay brick and then have the rock be gray. That might be kind of cool. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, most terrain pieces I've ever painted in the past from, or for Age of Sigmar or whatever, like the ruins of Osgiliath, those I painted gray, and the Dreadstone Keep or whatever that tower is, a ruined tower that they make, the round one, that one's painted gray. So I almost want to keep it gray just to be matched, but I don't know. I'll have to mess with it and try to figure it out. Esther says, my local store has a similar deal, but I prefer buying from my local GW store because of the manager being a wonderful and welcoming person. Well, I mean, you got to make those decisions, definitely. A lot of the independent stores, I think, have those kind of discount offers and like loyalty plans and stuff like that, so that... I know that my local store used to sell like everything 20% off. So if you came in and bought one thing, it was 20% off, and that was it. And he recently, at the beginning of the year, changed it over for a couple of reasons. One is because then people who could just come in and buy one thing end up paying full price, which helps him in the long run to keep the business open. And secondly, because the point of sale software that he uses Square. You guys are probably familiar with Square. It's like you can like swipe the card like on your phone. Like you could use it to take credit cards and debit cards like at your rummage sale or your garage sale or yard sale or whatever. But you also see restaurants using it now on iPads, and he uses it on iPad. He's got a little stand and all that stuff. Anyway, that company recently rolled out the ability to put in like loyalty plans. So like as long as you either use the same check card or credit card every time, or if let's say you do come in to buy something in cash, you tell them what your like your mobile number is or whatever, it will track without having to actually have a card to say, yes, this is my loyalty card. It will track your purchases, and then as you get like $100 worth of purchases or whatever they set it up to do, then you get a certain amount back or whatever. And I think that's cool. I think it works out nice. VJ Morph says, yes, a Skaven castle built on warpstone. See, that would be freaking sweet. Yeah, absolutely. Heyo says, all I see is the Popeye movie with Robin Williams whenever I see the all gray buildings. Evidently, those buildings, I just saw this recently somewhere. I don't know, Facebook or something like that. Oops. Oh, jeez. Just knocked that thing. The buildings that they used for that original like Popeye movie with Robin Williams from back in the 80s, those buildings are still standing, and I think people live in them. Or it's like a tourist attraction for wherever the heck they were built. I thought it was really interesting. Yeah, but I was just like, I had no idea. What else have we got? Hey, Adam, not to change the subject from Age of Sigmar. That's no problem. Do you think you'll play the new Necromunda at all, or has it gotten a following at your local store? I haven't seen anybody play it at the local store. I was saying this yesterday to the irregulars in the Patreon chat. I don't know that I'm going to necessarily play Necromunda because, and I was kind of mentioning this earlier here too, because I really like Shadow War a little bit better. So I think that Shadow War Armageddon is going to be more my thing. I mean, they just came out with the new Orlok War Band, or gang, I guess, for Necromunda, and I like those sculpts quite a bit. I like the looks of the Orlok gang more than the other two so far, the Escher and the Goliaths. Just personal preference. But I still don't know. Yeah, I mean, right now, like, I definitely see a bunch of the parts that are in that Necromunda box being parts I'm going to use for other stuff, definitely. You know, like all those like little scatter terrain pieces and everything. So yeah, looking at that. But I don't know if I'm going to actually end up playing Necromunda specifically because of Shadow War, because I like Shadow War already and I've played a bunch of it and I've got stuff like, you know, war bands and stuff built and ready to go. And I want to make a Grey Knights warband for Shadow War. Like, I bought just a box, because the max you can have in your warband for Shadow War for Grey Knights is 5 models. Well, I don't think they make it anymore, but there's an older box. It's not that old, but it's a little bit older. I think it's out of print. And it's like 5, you know, regular, like, power armor kind of Grey Knights. I think they call them a Strike Force or something like that. And it's 5 guys, and it was like $33. So I was like, if I just buy this box, I've got a warband. You know, your specialists and stuff like that, you need to find a couple other pieces, but I can probably find those on eBay. Yeah, so I do want to do, because I've always wanted to do Grey Knights, not like build an entire army, but I've always wanted to paint like cool silver guys, and the Grey Knights models amongst the Space Marines, like that are, you know, different than regular. The Grey Knights models I've always thought were super cool looking with all that etching that they've got, you know, with the different campaigns and stuff, and they're very different weapons. So anyway, that's why I'm probably more likely to stick with Shadow War than Necromunda myself. But I know they keep putting stuff out for Necromunda. Like I said, I think that, I was going to say, I think there's some people not in this town, but a couple towns over that have been playing Necromunda. But now that I keep thinking about it, actually, I think they're playing Shadow War. So, yeah, that's interesting. What else have we got? People talking about their discounts at their local stores. Bill Hayworth, or Haworth, I could be mispronouncing that. I apologize. Friendly local game stores are definitely feeling the pinch competing with the prices of online retailers, and sadly, we Wargamers need FLGSs, at least their space, more than the RPG-only folks. That's very true. The people who generally play at game stores are CCG people and Wargamers. You don't see, I mean, sometimes you see board gamers playing at local, like they do board game night and stuff like that at local shops. You see that a bit. Role-playing people frequently, I mean, there's a shop about 25 miles north of here where on any given Saturday there's usually, they have like these 2 back rooms based off, that are off of the regular big gaming room, that are almost every Saturday they're taken up with role players. But that's, I think, that's not the rule, that's kind of the exception. So yeah. Maliv says that he's painting Orlocks right now. Cool. Yeah, I just like the sculpts, I think, better than the other ones currently. Tim J. Mills says, yeah, I kind of want to get the Orlocks because the rule of cool. Does Shadow War have a good following in your area? I'd love to get into either one, but no one in Madison seems to be playing. Tim, I think that in the Wapaka area, or Waiwiga, maybe Waiwiga is what I'm trying to say. In the Waiwiga area, I know there's a bunch of guys, and some of them come to Oshkosh as well. But a lot of the guys in the near Waiwiga have been playing Shadow War like since it came out. So that's kind of cool. Tim Brown says that Warhammer Community just showcased a second wave of Space Marine heroes, and they seem to be Terminators. Well, that makes, I mean, I can kind of see that. That makes sense. I'm kind of surprised they haven't made a Chaos version of it, but maybe, I don't know, maybe the Japanese market's just not ready for that yet, and they just want to focus on the Space Marines because they are trying to get a foothold in that market, and they don't want to necessarily throw a curve and go, well, here's these other guys who are totally different. You know, maybe they want to keep with the whole, because the thing is that from what I understand, in general, the Japanese market is much more about the hobby and the modeling than the playing. Like that, it's starting to change, but you look at all the Gundams and all the different kinds of Japanese like military modeling and stuff like that. So I think they're trying to get a little bit into that market and go, look, here's these cool little boxes. You don't quite know what you're going to get, and you can get these models and you can build them and paint them, and then, you know, but there's not, there, you know, when you sell them one at a time, you're obviously not really particularly taking them into the gaming space, and I think it's a little bit more the modeling space. So maybe that's what they're trying to do. Tim J. Mill says, tell those nearby folks to get on Game Force so I can find their Shadow War sessions and plan to attend. That's not a bad idea. Yeah, I should, next time I see, maybe, well, next time I see Jerome at the shop, I'll let him know. Or if he's watching this, he could throw some stuff up on Game 4. The Big Bad Wolf, Shadow War Armageddon, is that based on 8th ed or 7th ed? It's kind of a weird mixture between a little bit of 8th and a little bit of 2nd, actually. It's an interesting system. It's not hugely different from the original Necromunda. It has some significant changes, but it's got a lot of the original Necromunda in it. So if you played Necromunda back in the day, it's going to seem very familiar to you. You know, you have the ability for weapons to jam, or you know, the ammo problems and stuff like that. You've got it's an interesting system, but it's not, I would say it's not 7th edition much at all. Zachary Campbell says, my FLGS has an at least 20% off sale. Saw Risk Legacy for $25. Anyone tried it? Risk Legacy, I know a lot of people who really enjoy it. The Legacy system on any of these types of games, whenever it's something Legacy, the idea behind it, and this is something relatively new to board gaming, is that you can really only play the board game so many times before you end up having to buy a new one. Now, at first glance, you're like, well, that stinks. What do you mean I can only play it so many times? Well, what happens in any kind of legacy game, and there's also Pandemic Legacy, and I think even Gloomhaven kind of does that to a degree. There are things that happen in the game, and then you maybe have to like tear open an envelope, and then there's maybe a special sticker in there, and then you put the sticker on the playmat or on the board, and now that country from now on in Risk is maybe nuked from the rest of the game, or they have some other new kind of thing going on there, like they discovered a new technology or whatever. So there's things that you do that change the board for the next time that you play. They change the overall world. And I think you even write on the board like who wins every game, and you can it's only got like maybe 15 or 20 spaces or whatever, but it's a kind of growing and evolving game. But it gets to the point where the game is now like, I think you can keep playing, but more often than not, people will just buy another version, and then it just kind of, it goes in a different direction. At that point, it's almost like the game itself is role playing and the world is changing. It's an interesting system. So if you're into Risk at all and you want something a little bit more crunchy or a little bit more interesting and that kind of tells a story and you and your friends play a little bit more frequently, yeah, I mean, $25 for Risk Legacy is a pretty good price. So yeah, that would be something cool. Zachary Campbell says, I enjoy buying. Yeah, well, a lot of us do the same thing too. Also enjoys sucking at painting. Well, no one really enjoys sucking at painting. And to be fair, if you follow the techniques and you do the stuff and you watch a bunch of videos, it generally anybody can paint, I personally believe. Even if you don't have any artistic talent, which many people don't, obviously. I barely do. I think that everybody can paint. Now, if you look at the stuff that's on the front of the box that you bought and go, well, I can't paint like that, that's true. Most people can't. People who've been doing it for a long time can't, but you don't want to necessarily try to hold yourself to that specific ideal and say, well, if I can't paint like that, I can't paint. That's not true. You can do decent work. You follow some techniques. You can do some nice clean work. You take some extra time. You take a little bit of, patience is a big deal. There's a lot of people that are like, well, I tried to paint these and they just don't turn out. And I'm like, well, how long did you spend on each one? And when you start, you have to spend longer on them than you do once you get good at it. And they're like, well, I spent nearly half an hour on this model. And I'm like, well, that's why, it kind of looks like what it looks like. And you have to understand that it will take a bit longer, which is one of the upsides to playing skirmish games, frankly, because in a skirmish game, maybe you've got a war band of 6 guys. Getting 6 models finished over the course of, let's say, 2 months or maybe even a month, it depends on how frequently you paint, is a lot easier than trying to stare down the barrel of a 2,500 point, like Age of Sigmar, list or whatever, and you've got so many models to paint or whatever. Yeah. I would tell you to try to start with smaller games first if you're just getting into it and kind of going that direction. Or, even if you're going to be playing bigger games, definitely start by painting smaller units. Where like there's 5 guys in this unit, I'm going to paint this unit first, and then next month maybe you paint a different unit, and there's maybe 5 or 10 guys in that, and you keep working that way. If you look at the entire army of all the stuff that you bought and go, well, I'll never be able to get this painted, well, you do. You just have to start somewhere, and you just have to kind of move forward. So, indeed. Excuse me. What else have we got here? Dave asks, is Eisenhorn in the... Oh, shoot. Hang on. Is Eisenhorn in the Asteris Militarum Codex? I don't think so. I mean, they're going to make a Eisenhorn model, I guess, which I thought was really cool. But, yeah, I don't know if they're going to be... I don't think there's stuff in that book yet, currently, no. Esther says there are techniques that make painting possible even for people who have motor difficulties. Dry brushing is great for people with those sorts of handicaps. Absolutely. And... you put some spray on that's maybe already the base color. Let's say you're painting, I don't know, Blood Angels. So you find like a red primer from a company like, well, even GW I think makes red primer, but so does Army Painter that makes a nice red primer. I've used like for Space Marines. I have, like, if you were going to do Blood Angels right now, if I was going to start painting Blood Angels, the first thing I would do is I'd go to an automotive store and I would buy a red oxide primer, which is a darker red primer used on cars, a sandable auto primer, and I would prime all my models in that dark red, and then I would take another rattle can of like a bright red color, and I would spray them all kind of from above, and now I've already got primed, base-coated, and highlighted Blood Angel Space Marines with basically 2 steps: spraying red primer, spraying red spray paint from above, and then you can go in and put in all the eyes and the rim on the shoulder pads and paint the guns and all that stuff. There's a lot of techniques that you can get through on that stuff, and like Esther said, dry brushing to bring out the detail, like on the chest eagle thing and all that kind of junk. There's a lot of techniques that you can do. You don't have to paint every last little piece. You can sometimes just dry brush to give the, bring out the detail in it to make it look like you meant to do that. There's a lot of stuff like that. VJ Morph says many people start off painting with the wrong paints, like enamels, and don't thin their paints so they look all lumpy. That's also true. Thinning your paints is super important. And some people are like, yeah, but if I thin my paints, I have to do 2 thin coats, like Duncan tells us. Well, Duncan's smart. Yeah, it may take longer, but you'll be happier for a longer time with a better looking model than you will with the time that you saved by putting on 1 thick lumpy coat. That's kind of the way it works. I clicked to see a giant gray castle, and all I got is a big gray beard. Well, you missed the castle, but if you go back, you can watch. I did the unboxing. Here's part. This is the bottom. I've put these 2 pieces together, not with glue, just stuck them together. But yeah, I did talk about the castle, Castle Grayskull, a while ago. Tymasar Ludfang says, I'm a scrub who primes my models with brush. I have no problem with priming with a brush. I haven't found anything I like greatly as far as a brush-on primer, other than Reaper's got a nice brush-on primer. I think it's maybe only in black and white, but they do have a nice brush-on primer. I use it more for, like, if I've sprayed, let's say I was gonna, like I was talking before about the Blood Angels, let's say. So I've sprayed them all red and then sprayed them again with some brighter red. But now on the Sergeant, he doesn't have his helmet on, so I've got to paint his face, like, person colored or whatever. Let's say lighter person color, for just example. If you try to paint, like, a Caucasian flesh color over the dark red, it's not going to work right away, and you're going to have to put on lots and lots and lots of base or coats to kind of cover it up. What you can do instead is take, like, Reaper is one that I use, but there's other companies that make brush-on primers too, in like regular little bottles. I'm going to just for a second here, just crushing the head. Anyway, so Reaper brush-on primer like white, then you just paint the face completely white, and then start putting like a Caucasian color on it or whatever like that, if that's what you're trying to do. And then that helps as a nice base, so you're not trying to put like a, that color directly over the dark red. You could do the same type of thing. It's good sometimes to put primer over parts when you have already painted it dark, but now you need it to be lighter. So you throw in some like brush-on primer of like white or something like that, or gray, and then you kind of go from there. So yeah, I'm assuming they must make a gray brush-on primer. Reaper does too. I don't have any. I just only have the black and white. I bought a bunch of it online years ago, and I still use it quite a bit. Mad Cat Carter says, stuck them together, but not with glue. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that they fit. I mean, they're just, yeah. There's posts, and you just stick them together. I will glue them when the time comes to put it together, certainly. But I just wanted to make sure that they weren't super crazy warped, and so far, so good. So, what else have we got? GW recently made a video about thinning paints. Horribly over-exaggerated, but it gets the point across. Yeah, I mean, honestly, thinning paints is super important. If you want help with thinning paints, I would tell you to definitely watch my video or anybody else's video about the wet palette, because the wet palette really helps you with thinning paints. Once I started thinning paints, I wasn't using a wet palette. I was just using like a plastic palette. And so you put some paint on there, and then you take a little dab of water, and you thin out the paint, and then you start painting your model. The problem is then the thinned out paint, the water in it evaporates very quickly, and within like a minute or so, your paint's now dry on the plastic palette. So then you have to go get some more paint and go that direction. With a wet palette, it doesn't dry out. I mean, it might over days, but over the time that you're painting, when you put some paint on the palette and a little bit of water to thin it, it stays wet and it doesn't dry out on the palette, because the palette itself is kind of moist, and that's super, super useful. And then you can get a lot more painting done a lot more quickly and not have to waste as much paint. Now, if you come back 3 days later and want to reuse that paint, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the paint manufacturer. Some paint manufacturers, you will notice the paint will separate on your palette over days and days if you don't use it. So it's not like you can't use every last iota of paint all the time, but during the actual painting session, you can paint a lot quicker and a lot more with less paint when you use a wet palette. That's just my opinion. There are still people who, I see pro painters that don't use them, but a lot of people that have watched my video about the wet palette have told me at like online and at conventions and all kinds of places, they're like, it just totally changed my painting, and I know it changed mine. So definitely. Frankie Lee Bailey says, question, does anyone have a hat for the cello case? I did have a fez on him a couple months back one time. There's no fez on today, but there will be, you know, maybe eventually we could, I don't know, sombrero maybe? I don't think I have a sombrero. No, I don't. Let's see here. Mad Cat Carter says, wet palette changed my life. Yeah, it really changed my painting. It made it way easier and better. Ronnie Dringus. That's hard to say. Make pinholes on bases before or after painting. So I'm assuming you're talking about making holes in the base that you will then use to glue the person onto the base, and then you probably have got you know, pieces of wire or paperclip or whatever stuck up into their feet, and then okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a personal preference thing. You know, I could see doing the hole drilling after you get done painting, because then, you know, there's not necessarily a reason not to, because, yeah, you might scuff up the paint, but it's underneath where the foot's going to go anyway. I guess it depends. If like one of the feet, like if the model is kind of like running or something and they've got one foot that's just barely touching the base on a much smaller area, then you might want to drill those holes ahead of time. I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of a case-by-case basis, honestly. I generally don't put bases on later. I generally build my guys. I might have them in, you know, sub-assemblies for certain pieces like capes and shields and things like that. But I generally then do, you know, I put them on the base and then I texture the base and I do all that before I start priming, pretty much. So, yeah. Rick Mayo says, do you ever thin with glaze medium? I found it takes things to another level. I have used glaze medium a little bit, but I've usually used it more to turn a color into a glaze as opposed to just using it to thin things a little bit. But I know that Chris from Mini Wargaming and The Way of the Brush is his YouTube channel specifically. I know he uses Lamin Medium, which is not exactly a glaze medium, but kind of. He uses that a lot for thinning his paints, and he's a big fan. So, yeah, definitely. What else is going on here? Sato7 says, hey Adam, I just wanted to say thank you for your videos. You got me into the hobby. Painting is changing my life. Thank you. Looking forward to attend your workshop at Adepticon. Oh, great. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to doing those as well. I'm running 2 seminars at Adepticon this year. Both of them are about YouTubery. One is more about the technical details. The other one's more about the branding and content and all that kind of jazz. I ran those events at LVO this year. And I also ran them at Adepticon 2 years ago, 2016. Yeah, I think it was maybe 2016 I ran those events. 2016, I think at Adepticon, I think I sold maybe 13 or 14 tickets for the technical one, and maybe 8 or 10 for the content and whatnot one. I remember 12 Neef was at least one of them, if not both of them. Some of you also might have been at those. This year at Adepticon, both of those events are sold out at 24 seats each, so that's really cool. I'm super glad. Like the technical one sold out pretty quick. The one that's the like content and strategy and whatnot, that one took a little bit longer to sold out, but I think it had like 2 or 3 seats left for up until about a month ago, and now it's all sold out. So I'm really looking forward to that. I enjoy doing those talks and things, and I frankly want people to be able to, if they have the interest, to start doing, whether it's YouTube or, I mean, that's what I'm talking about because that's what I know, but whether it's YouTube or a podcast or a blog or whatever, I think that creating content about your hobby, I think, frankly, helps your hobby. I'm actually going to make a video about this sooner versus later, I hope. But I think that once you get to a certain point in your hobby, there's a lot of people that are like, I would like to create content about it. Not only just to help other people, but just to also help yourself to some degree. Like, you know, when you are making videos or making a blog post, and if you're making a blog post every week, you know, you need to talk about stuff that you're blogging about. And so it kind of helps to spur your motivation within the hobby as well. So I think it's cool. Adam Nodwell says, hello, okay, I currently use Army Painter paints. True or false, some are a complete no-no for dry brushing. I guess I haven't heard that. I mean, I know in the Games Workshop line there are certain paints that they say are for dry brushing and certain paints that they say are more for basing or layering or whatever. I don't necessarily, I'll use whatever paint I want to use for dry brushing. It is true if a paint is a lot more fluid and a little bit less, say, like pasty, it's a little bit harder to do dry brushing with it sometimes. I have found that sometimes with paints that are very, very, very fluid, I will not put them on my wet palette because I'm using them for dry brushing. I'll put them on a piece of plastic and I'll let them sit for a couple of minutes to hopefully kind of like not harden, but at least become a little bit less fluid. And then it makes it a little bit easier sometimes to get them to dry brush. Yeah, when I'm dry brushing something, I almost never take the paint that I'm going to dry brush with and put it on my wet palette because I don't want it to get wetter. You know what I mean? For dry brush, you want the paint to be a little bit drier. But I guess I haven't heard that about Army Painter, that there's certain paints you're not supposed to use for dry brushing. I haven't heard that at all. Well, got a lot of conversation about wet palettes and stuff like that going on. That's cool. My wet palette works well, but seems to mold after a day or so. Could be my area, though. Yeah, potentially. Like, I find here, where I live, we get moldy bread much more in the summer than we do in the winter. So I don't know if it's just a general moisture thing or if it's something about the plants spawning, or not spawning, sporing. I don't know. I'm no mold scientist, but I don't know what it is. We never get moldy bread almost ever, like in the winter, but in the summer we see it more. So it could be the same type of deal. Kelly Audia says, anyone know of a gray wash other than the Cedar Weapon glazes? Maybe someone has a recipe for one. I don't know if they still make it or not, but I'm 98% sure Reaper used to make a gray wash called Pale Gray. You might look online for that. I've used that wash tons of times when I'm painting white. So like you paint the thing white, and then you throw this, it's called Pale Gray, and it's a very subtle gray wash. You throw that over it, and then do some highlighting back up with white, and it can be a nice looking effect for because white's hard to paint, especially if you're trying to like have some wash and some highlight. If you paint something white and you throw like Null oil on top of it, it's no longer anywhere near white, and that makes it problematic. This bottle of, like, I didn't even know Reaper made washes at the time, and I again don't know that they still do, but I believe it was a Reaper wash and it was Pale Gray. If it wasn't Reaper, then it might have been Vallejo. I know it was in a squeeze bottle, but I thought it was Reaper, so take a look for that. A lot of people talking again about the wet palette for life. What else have we got? Michelle says, thanks, you made me come back to the hobby. I'm glad. I'm glad that you're glad. I did a video, I don't know, several months back about the hobby being meditative, and I really do believe that. I really do believe that being able to take the time to sit down and build models, paint models, that kind of stuff, listen to music while you're doing it, listen to audiobooks while you're doing it, listen to podcasts, video things like this while you're doing it. I think that it helps to keep you kind of centered. It helps to reduce stress, that kind of stuff. I think that you're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years, you know how like there's yoga studios everywhere? At least in America, there's yoga studios all over the place. I think you're going to start seeing that kind of thing with meditation. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of like meditative studios and stuff like that. It's going to become a big deal in the world to some degree. Over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a lot of it. So if you can sit at home and, paint Castle Grayskull and stuff like that as your kind of getaway from like work and other life stresses, and that's how you do it, I think, then you don't have to go to a studio and pay them. You just, pay Games Workshop or whatever game company you're working with to buy, paints and materials and models and stuff like that, and go to town and get your meditation on that way. And, when you're doing just regular meditation, what do you get out of it? Inner peace, sure. But when you do other types of meditation, like, modeling, at the end, you get cool pieces of terrain and cool models and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a twofer. And you can listen to a podcast while you're doing it, maybe. And then that's like 3 things, or an audiobook. I don't know why everybody's not doing it, frankly. All right. Vallejo makes a gray wash, 76 point 512 is the model number or bottle number or whatever. So that's cool. Someone said that, and then it scrolled off the top. Sorry. Devin Jones, just checked my paint rack. Reaper has a stone wash. Vallejo has a pale gray. So maybe it was a Vallejo wash. Yeah. But if you can find the pale gray from wherever, Vallejo, I guess, it works out. It works out well, I think. I think it's great for using white, frankly. Kelly says the white was exactly what I was looking for, why I was looking for the gray wash. Thanks for the answer. By the way, don't sell yourself short. You're a tremendous mold scientist. I never graduated, you know, with the degree in mold. So I mean, I know about it a little bit. That summer thing. Really, anything else? Adrian says my friends noticed a change in me after I started painting. Noticed I was happier and more relaxed. Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, friend at work. His wife is like, you know what you need to do? You need to go down to the basement and paint, you know, because you get stressed, and so you should go do that, or you should go game, you know, that kind of stuff. And so I think it really can do some work. I think it really help your overall, you know, well-being mentally, generally. I mean, obviously, you want to do other things for the other parts of your body. You want to, you know, because sometimes sitting and painting, you're hunched over and you're kind of, but you want to go out and take a walk and do things like that to kind of, you know, whatever. But for the mental, you know, health, that's a thing. That's important. Dantiak says, I am moving next week and need to secure 40K Horus Heresy Force and my 4K 40K Force, and I have one mini case. Please help. I would tell you to get... I'd probably just tell you to go to the store and get some of that bubble wrap. I don't know if you want to get the big bubble wrap cells or the little tiny bubble wrap cells. I'm not sure, but you can buy sheets or rolls of it. And then I would probably try to find like a banker's box, you know, those cardboard boxes that you usually buy at the probably at the same place. Like if you go to like a Office Max or Staples or any kind of like office supply store, you get yourself something like that. And then I would just tell you to sort of layer it, you know, lay a bunch of models on top of the bubble wrap, and then put another layer of bubble wrap on top, and then lay more models and do that. I mean, it's not ideal. I wouldn't put it in I wouldn't, you know, check luggage that way because it wouldn't work out super well. But for just basically like, I'm going to move this box to a new location, like a new house or a new apartment that you're moving into, I think it's probably would work out pretty well. Protect the models at least well enough until you get there, and it's relatively inexpensive. Yeah, I would probably do something like that. Try to get some banker boxes with a nice lid, you know, and some rolls of bubble wrap, and that should probably do you pretty well, I would hope. Mad Cat Carter says direct sunlight should prevent mold growth. It sounds like Mad Cat Carter might be a mold scientist. But on the other hand, the water in the wet palette combined with heat will produce humidity, which mold growth is directly linked to. Yeah, I don't know that I ever get mold in my... Because there's some times when like I'm in build mode for quite a while, maybe like a month or two, and I haven't painted. And then I open up my thing, and it smells maybe sometimes a little musty, but I don't see any mold. Every once in a while I think that there's mold in there, but more often than not, it just seems to be that some of the paint got into the paper towel, and like it, you know, so it got all dark. So I'm like, oh, it's black mold. No, it's just black paint that got into the, and then kind of wicked its way through the water. Sometimes green too. I think one time it happened and it was orange. I'm like, well, that's probably not mold. But yeah, getting the paint real near the edge of the paper that you put on top, it can then sometimes kind of creep over and then get into the sponge if you use a sponge, or if you use paper towel like I do, it can get in there. Just basically chuck everything and kind of wash it out real nice, and then just throw in new paper and throw in new whatever you're using for the base part, and then some water, and you're ready to go. Oops, I knocked that over. Chris asks, do you use craft paints or miniature specific paints? I tried to use craft paints, but have realized the cost difference isn't worth it. Thoughts? I will use craft paints on terrain, but I won't use them on models. The difference between craft paints and like what's normally known as miniature paints or model paints predominantly is the pigment size. When you go to Walmart or Kmart or any of those kind of places, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, and you buy those bottles that are like this tall with a pop-up top and you squeeze it out for like 99 cents or $1.09 or whatever, apple barrel paint and, you know, all those different things, those are fine for terrain. You know, if you're building terrain, I mean, like with this thing, I would definitely use that as a dry brush paint on the rocks, but for the little details, the skulls and stuff like that, I don't know I would use it. But for bigger pieces, if you're building your own terrain, those paints are a godsend. They work great. I have that Realm of Battle board, the big plastic board that GW produces. That's like a 6-part like modular plastic board. I bought it more than a decade ago. It's a lot more expensive now than it used to be. Anyway, there's like a bunch of rocks and stuff like that sticking up in certain spots to give it kind of different, visual cues or whatever. And most of the dry brushing and painting on that, I used craft paints. I didn't use, regular GW paints or Vallejo or anything like that. But for painting models, I generally prefer to use model paints because the pigments are more finely ground, and it just works out really well for that kind of stuff. So, yeah, definitely. Mad Cat Carter says, I've lived with people who grew mushrooms, and I've had mold growth in my wet palette. Orange is bad if it looks like it's made of something. Yeah, like I said, it was just orange paint that had leaked. It wasn't orange mold. Yeah. Irrational Gaz says, back in the 90s, I used to use an old plastic toolbox, cut up poster tubes, and bubble wrap to secure minis for transport. Vehicles were always a bit more difficult. Yeah, the vehicles I could see being problematic. In that situation, I would maybe almost buy make sure to buy the smaller cell bubble wrap, and then maybe cut pieces and like wrap them individually as opposed to doing the layers. I could see for the models, the figures themselves, you could do layers and then just sort of stack them in there. But for the bigger vehicles, I don't know, let's say it's like a Lehman Russ tank or those crazy flying tanks that the Eldar use that are those I would probably wrap separately and then try to stack them nicely. You could also, if you've got old t-shirts, you could wrap them in that. That might work too if you don't want to go out and buy bubble wrap. I use old t-shirts right now a lot of times for wrapping my cameras in my camera case because that's what I've got, and then that's what I do. What else? For mold to exist, you need spores, humidity, and shade. We've got another mold scientist in the house. It seems you don't have any mold spores. That's why you never get any mold in your house. Seems sterile in that regard. Oh, our house is not sterile. I'll tell you that right now. It's mostly cat hair. Like I said, our bread only seems to mold in the summer, not in the winter. And I do wonder if it could be also a moisture thing. Like right now it's dry in here. It's dry in the entire state because it's winter and it gets pretty dry. Almost like Utah dry, but in the summer, definitely it becomes a lot more of a humid place up here. So, that would also make sense. Dave says that Vallejo gray primer sells fast in my local, and we all know why. Well, sure, yeah, I can see that. Mad Cat Carter says, for the mold issue in your, I'm assuming he's talking in the wet palette, change your water storage medium, clean the inside when you swap it out, keep it cool, and you should be good. Yeah, I could see that too. Like if it's in a place that's real warm, I could see the mold be much more interesting. Whereas if it's in a cooler place, yeah. Like I wonder if some people keep their wet palette in the fridge. That'd be interesting. It's not like when you're not using it, obviously. That might help right there. Frankly, that's good to say. Good morning, Uncle Adam. Greetings from Mexico City. Good morning. Yeah, it's still, I'm sure it's like, what is it, probably about 9:45 there or so, roughly. Maybe 8:45, but probably 9:45. Adrian Warner says peanuts are good for vehicles. Packing peanuts, not salted peanuts. Yeah, I could understand that. Salted peanuts would make a mess, I think. It would really mess up your paint job. Malib says, Adam, I live in Utah, and yeah, the dryness definitely affects my wet palette. Yeah, I could definitely see that. The last 2 times that I was in Utah for the Valhalla thing, you're there for a week, and wow, like I don't know how many times I would wake up in the middle of the night and just everything is dried out. Like after a while, I just started sleeping with a bottle of water next to my bunk, and that helped. So when you wake up in the middle of the night gasping, basically you just drink a bunch of water and go back to sleep. Even in the winter, I don't generally need to do that here in Wisconsin, but yeah. Dave says that mold does grow in fridges. Well, that's true, I guess. That's a good point. I would think it would be harder, but it's hard to say. Again, not a mold scientist. Necronaut Drummer asks, toss your wrung out sponge in the microwave for a minute or two to kill the mold? Yeah, I don't know. Or to make nuclear mutant super mold, I guess. That's also a possibility. I don't know. Or just to make a really hot sponge. I don't know if I put it in the microwave. I'm not sure about that. Model Making Guru says, I keep my wet palette in the fridge all the time. It helps prevent stinky times, which is, yes, and also helps avoid paint separation. Oh, that's not a half bad idea, because I do get some paint separation. I should try that and see if it helps, because I do, over long times, sometimes get paint separation. I will have to try that. Also hearing that vinegar will kill mold as well. See, this really should have been the mold show versus the unboxing the Castle Grayskull here. We could. This is every other mold show. Oops, I keep knocking this over. I'm gonna put it over here. I also I just got something else in the mail too, besides the eyes and this other stuff. But it wasn't from Australia. It was from, oh heck, I don't remember where it's from. Canada maybe. Anyway, some of you might remember the Warhammer Weekly show on YouTube. They do almost every Wednesday. I think they do a show about. It's usually about Age of Sigmar, but they also talk about Ninth Age and a bunch of other stuff. It's Vince Venturella, and he's got a co-host, Tommy, and they usually have guests on there. I've been a guest on there a couple of times. End of the year, the last several years, they've had the Warhammer YouTubers Award, and Tabletop Minions was. It was nominated for a couple different things, and this year won for Best Hobby Advice. So I received this lovely certificate just last week, I think, from Kieran, and so yeah, it's the Warhammer YouTubers 2017 awarded for Best Hobby Advice Tabletop Minions. So that was very nice, and I appreciated all the votes and all that stuff for that and winning it. I'm going to probably try to find some sort of framing sort of situation for this, maybe hang it up at the new studio. Looking forward to that. Kieran Dunleavy, who I ran into at LVO as well. Very nice guy. So, but yeah, if you're into Age of Sigmar and the fantasy type stuff, take a look at Vince Venturella's channel. Especially on Wednesday nights, because they do the live show and they talk about a lot of stuff and have guests on, and it's a good show. So, someone talking about a hot sponge. I'm not even sure what that's. Dave says you could just boil the sponge in water to kill the mold and then dry it out. That's also not a bad idea. Probably better than the microwave. I don't know what's going to happen if you put it in the microwave. Someone mentioned Mold Minions, the Mold Show with Uncle Adam. See, it's now we're getting into some strange spots here. Bill says we clean our normal sponges in the dishwasher. Seems like to do quite well on the mold and gunk. Yeah, I don't know. Like those plastic things that you use frequently for your, like in the video that I did about wet palette, I just used like a plastic, like Glad, like sandwich, kind of Tupperware thing. I don't know if the dishwasher, and I'm pointing back there because that's where the kitchen is, I don't know if the dishwasher would melt those. I mean, I guess maybe if you put it in the top rack, like it does not get as hot up there, I guess. Yeah, that's a good question. Irrational Gaz says, pretty sure that's how you make anthrax. Gosh, I hope not. Java Drink has a good point. Just try using distilled water. You can use a bit of vinegar or hydrogen peroxide to prevent mold. A TSB... A dab. I'm not sure. A tablespoon. Haha. A tablespoon should do it depending on the size of the wet palette. Yeah, I don't know what would happen if you put vinegar or hydrogen peroxide into the water of your wet palette. Would it mess with the paints, though? I wouldn't want to use vinegar because I kind of hate the smell of vinegar. So, for me, that's a no. Hydrogen peroxide, not so bad. But I don't know what that would do to the paints. That's a good question. Ratmaster 2000 says, I love Anthrax, the band, that is. I was a big fan, actually, too, back in college. I used to listen to, a lot of them. Attack of the Killer Bees was like one of my favorite albums by them, which is all kind of like B-sides and rarities and stuff. I was a big fan. People are saying congrats, and I don't know why. What did I miss? Shoot. Well deserved. Oh, it's for the sorry, yeah, because it's behind. Everything's a little bit behind. Congrats for for this. Thank you very much. Yes. Well, again, like I said, it was votes by folks like you. So yeah, that was cool. It's nice that they do it. You know, like they do good work and they kind of spread the word about different channels that maybe you haven't heard about because you watch like the show where they talk about the nominations and stuff, and so you find out about channels that maybe you just haven't caught before or just haven't showed up in your feed, and it's all YouTubers. But yeah, it works out real nice. VJ Morph asks, Adam, have you ever tried making your own decals? I have seen materials at the hobby store where you can like put it in an inkjet printer and then make your own decals that way. I don't currently own an inkjet printer. I have a color laser, and I don't know if they make them for color lasers as well, but the ones I've only ever seen have ever been for inkjet printers. I have not tried making my own color decals though. I've got a friend who I used to work with. He and his wife used to make, as a side business, they made like custom outfits for like the big, like the older, like 12-inch GI Joes, which is, everyone's got their own kind of niche. But yeah, so they did that. They would make these like special outfits and stuff like that for the big GI Joes that were different types of more realistic military outfits as opposed to Cobra and whatever and all that jazz. And he told me that they had gotten to the point where they had bought a specific dye sublimation printer that's able to print in all the like regular print colors, CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Like if you look at printed stuff, it's those 4 colors. Whereas your video screen here is 3 colors because it's RGB. Anyway, the dye sub printer that they bought had a 5th color, which was white, so that they could print white and then print, you know what I mean? So that, because otherwise those things are usually transparent. That would be cool. I'm not great at decals in general. I've only ever barely used them. I generally actually prefer to go with more 3D stuff if I can. Like, I will probably try to put some decals on my repulsor tank for my Steel Cross, but I've also got lots of 3-dimensional stuff stuck on there. Stuff that I got from Shapeways, actually, because they make like Maltese cross pieces for vehicles, and so I've got a bunch of stuff glued on that. I'm not great with decals. Like when I see people and they put decals on a shoulder pad for like say a Space Marine and stuff, I'm super impressed because that's really hard to get them on that curved thing and not get wrinkles and stuff in them. I've put decals on flat things like tanks and stuff. That's not hard. But, man, I'm not a big decal guy, I guess. So, no, I have not bothered to make any of my own decals. I think it's a cool process. I would be interested in trying it out eventually someday. But Dave says, I'm trying to make decals. The paper is either laser or inkjet. Oh, okay, so there is a laser. Or inkjet painter friendly. There is also white and clear decal paper. Oh, see, there you go. Clear tends to dim the decal's colors if the miniature background is dark. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting. The Cimbrian Bull asks, what kind of liquor do you keep in that cupboard? Well, let's see here. That is bourbon, which I like. Maybe there's 2 bourbons? I don't know what's back there. Just a bunch of different stuff. I think that's maybe some sort of chocolate liqueur. I think that is bitters, maybe. There's a bunch of different stuff in there. I've got a box of wine in the kitchen, too. Those Glad boxes tend to be dishwasher safe, according to David McAvoy. Yeah, but I think, like I said, you have to keep them up in the top shelf or rack or whatever, because otherwise they will get melted. FS says that there are decal sheets for laser. Good to know. Adrian says, my buddy does his own, gets great results. Obviously, for white, use the white sheets and just do the black outline. Like I said, but they also do make like I think he said it was a dye sub printer, and then they would be able to print in white, which would be way nicer because then you could still print. You could print it onto the clear stuff, but you could print a layer of white and then print everything else over it, and then you could have like a white outline, or you could do white letters or numbers on a tank and stuff like that. Whereas the ones that like that's really what I would like to be able to have. Is a lot of the stuff that I paint is darker. If you think especially about like military stuff, whenever they painted numbers and letters and serial numbers on stuff like that, it was generally in a white paint or something like that, usually. Maybe tan. G.I. Joe was called Action Force in Europe. Well, that makes sense, I suppose. Because G.I. Joe, from what I understand, G.I. stood for government issue, and G.I. Joe was like a so that was kind of an American slang thing for our military, but Action Force would make sense. It's Royale with cheese, because they don't use the metric system. Same kind of deal. Microsol and Microset is your friend for using decals. Yeah, I mean, that's once you get really good with it and you're trying to put these decals on very weird shapes. Got that color, everything went purple for a second. Whoa, that's crazy. Anyway, I got to get the better camera hooked up here. That would be lovely. But yeah, once you get that stuff sort of sorted, where you're trying to start putting decals on curvier shapes and things like that, the Microsol and Microset really help it kind of adhere and bend and kind of, do things to your will. So yeah, definitely. What else? Adam, you should try a Black Forest Old Fashioned. Oh, well, it doesn't sound so bad. We have a bottle of, Old Fashions are big in Wisconsin in general, but there's also a company that makes basically just bottled Old Fashioned. You just pour it over ice. And my wife seems to like that a little better just because it's quicker, and she does like the flavor of that specific mix or whatever. I can't think. We get it at Costco. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah. John J says, mugs, Uncle Adam, do some mugs or Tabletop Minion title bar signs we can hang on our paint stations. I honestly have thought about the idea of mugs because I think people would use it for their paint water or whatever. I think that the company that I'm going to be going through for the t-shirts also does mugs, amongst other things, like throw pillows and shower curtains. Anyway, so yeah, I definitely have kicked around the idea of doing those mugs through that company, because it would be, if I have to get mugs made and then ship them to everybody, that seems like a pain, but they do nice quality, and then they print on the mugs. I don't know that the mugs come in any other color other than white, so if you wanted a black mug with some white printing on it, I don't think I can do that, but I could be wrong, so... Zachary Campbell says, instant old-fashioned? Well, yeah, I don't know if it's brandy or whiskey. That's a good question. Anyway, it's a little after 11. It's 1 minute after 11. And I appreciate everybody coming and watching me show you what Castle Grayskull here looks like, and that kind of stuff, and asking questions and listening to answers and having a good time and chatting with each other. I think that it's this type of thing definitely helps to get the community, our community, kind of closer together. So that's why being at the live show is cool if you can, but if not, I'm glad that people get to listen to it later on while they paint and hobby and do that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is, let's see, so the next time that I talk to you guys, it'll be, well, in the live show, will be 2 weeks from now, and it will be the Sunday after I get back from Fire and Ice. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about Fire and Ice next time, or something else will have come up. Maybe that new board game thing that is allegedly at New York Toy Fair that Games Workshop is coming out with. Maybe we'll have more news about that. Who is to say? Yes, definitely. All right, so anyway, I appreciate everyone coming out and saying hi. And we'll see you on the live show in another 2 weeks here at the Every Other Sunday show. Thanks for watching.